welcome to the 757 Spy Flight over on YouTube. I'm sure you must recognize that airplane. That is the famous United Star Wars 737 Model 800. And the 737 is now available for Xbox pilots. Hello and welcome to the channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Dave. I do the spy flights over on Twitch, and every now and then I come over to YouTube to do a full complete flight showing you all the little buttons that you need to press to be able to make these increasingly complex simulated airplanes take off, land, and cruise all in a way so that you don't make the simulated evening news. So welcome aboard. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on today. So the Xbox pilots have been anxiously waiting for the PMDG 737 to arrive. It is now available for Xbox pilots. From what I understand, it's the 700 and the 800 variant of 737. So the one that I usually fly is the 800, and that's the one that seems to be the most, it's the most used 737. So what are we going to do today? We are going to shadow a real-world flight. We're going Denver to Phoenix today. This real-world flight is scheduled to take off within the hour. Denver runway 8 is the current active runway. There is the real-world flight plan. 7 right is the arrival in Phoenix. Cruise level is flight level 360. We are going to do about 2 hours and 5 minutes. The flight distance is 622 miles. So what's all this about? Well, hey, this PMDG is now on Xbox, and so this is what I call a full cold and dark flight. Here are the add-ons that I'm using. I am using Navigraph, SimBrief, and Volanta. You could probably, since you're flying on Xbox, I would imagine you would be able to get Navigraph and SimBrief on a tablet that you may have at home. I also use SkyVector as a flight planner, and also to find the real-world flights, I look at FlightAware, and I'm going to show you that too. And for weather information in the United States, I'll be using the FAA Digital ATIS website. Links, of course, are all in the description. So, as I said, we're following a real-world flight today. I'm going to show you loading pushback that you can use on Xbox. We're not going to use any of the fancy PC things that you can get. I'll also show you how to put your flight plan into the FMC using Xbox, because I don't think that you can go and import a flight plan from SimBrief yet. I think that's going to be changing. And obviously, I need a little bit of coffee, too. It is allergy season outside of Spy HQ. So I'm also using real weather in real time. And I really think that with the arrival of the PMDG 737, this really is a whole new world for Xbox pilots. So what can you do with all this? Well, first of all, if you've got Xbox and you've got the new PMDG, stop this video right now on YouTube and load up your sim and fly along with me. I'm going to show you every button that I'm pushing to try and make this flight work. The beauty of flying here on YouTube is you can stop and start the video. You can rewind it a little bit in case you might have missed one of the buttons that I was pressing. And then I always like to suggest, if you're going to fly along with me in a couple of days, do a flight out of your hometown airport. That way you're going to remember some of the things. You may even want to find a way to use Notepad or something like that to create your own little checklist of things that we do here. And then join us on Twitch over on the Spy Flight. Every flight that we do on Twitch is a group flight, and you are definitely welcome. One of the things I like to say about my YouTube videos, I am a private pilot. I can fly a Cessna 152, a 172, and a Cardinal, okay? I am not an airline pilot. And what these videos are about is not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is about what works for me. And hopefully these are things that are going to work for you as you start to experience the amazing new world that we have in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm still new here on YouTube. I read all the questions and the comments. We're live on Twitch, and I certainly hope that you're going to come and join us over there. All right. Enough of the yapping. Let's go ahead and start looking at all the little buttons here. First of all, one of the things I'll talk to you about is about cold and dark. And I have a cold and dark setup here on my 737. And part of my cold and dark setup is everything's off, but I do have that ground power unit plugged in. So ground power is plugged in. And then the other thing that I have set up here is I have my main cabin door open. Now you can see the jetway is not in place, but the main cabin door is open And normally we would use something like GSX or something to get that jetway over, but there is a way that we're going to be able to get the jetway over using the PMDG. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to hop into the best seat in the house. And there's a nice front view, and there we are. Here's the main pilot seat, and everything is looking pretty good. One of the things that I always like to suggest to PC pilots, and you as well, is before you start pushing all your buttons, move your throttles around a little bit. Make sure that your controllers are attached. That's an important thing to do. Just make sure that everything is ready to go, okay? The real world pilots are going to get in here and they're going to look at several things. They're going to look in and see the first thing is that gear lever down. So make sure your gear lever is down. Make sure that the speed brakes are down and the flaps are up. Those are a couple of things. The real world pilots will make sure that the left and right windshield wipers are parked and off before they start flipping switches. I guess that's kind of a bad thing because pretty much every pre-flight checklist that I see always says, make sure the wipers are off before you hit the power switch. Okay, so what can we do? Let's go on down here. And if you are starting out here and your airplane is completely cold and dark, you may not see that the menu is up here on the flight management computer. Okay, so if it isn't, over in the PC, and I'm going to assume that what we're doing here is the same for an Xbox, just hold the menu button down. If you hold the menu button down, you should all of a sudden see stuff. Now we're going to go to PMDG setup. Okay, and there is a thing called you can load a panel state. So there's panel state save, panel state load. You can see I've got one called startup state. So one of the things that I've done is I've got my airplane exactly the way I want it. Ground power plugged in, door open, all the switches. I mean, all of my switches are off here. So everything is ready to go. And so what I've done is after I've done that, I have saved my panel state and I gave it a name called SPY. Okay. And so this is my startup state. If you don't have one of those, go ahead and click panel state load. And you can see it'll put you on approach. It could put you on the apron. You can do climbing and cold and dark. So if you don't have a startup, hit that cold and dark button, and that's going to get your airplane to a cold and dark state. Okay? So all of that is good, and you should be in about the same place that I am. Return, go back to the main menu, and now we're going to do FS actions. There are two ways to load this airplane. So, one of the things we got to do is we got to put in fuel and passengers, right? The fast and dirty way is you see where it says fuel and payload? So just go over to fuel and put in your total fuel. And you're going to find your total fuel. Now, I use the Lido style of flight plan. This is the default flight plan from SimBrief. And if you look, it says block fuel. So 15,211 pounds of fuel. That's what you would put in there. And just bing, you're done. Zero. All right, payload. So payload, you can go in and from what I understand, I don't do it this way. You can put in your passengers and your cargo. So, you can have 12 first class passengers, 148. This one gets a little bit, I would kind of like to, just give us a zero fuel weight to plug in there. But anyhow, those are the two fast and dirty ways that you can load the airplane. The way I usually do this is I come over here to ground services and I click ground services and you can see my ground power card is there. Oh, look at this thing over here. It says jetway request and release. Let's click that button and go outside and see what's going on. We'll also turn on the sound and look at that. Here comes our jetway. So you can go, and if you are parked in an airport that has a jetway and you're in the right spot, you should be able to click that button and that's going to get you a jetway out to your airplane. So that's going to be kind of nice. I am using the Denver Payware Airport. I hear that there are more Payware airports that are coming on board to Xbox. So now we got a jetway out there. All right, let's go in and look at the next page. So you can see over here at the top it says 1 through 4. So next page, potable water, lavatory request, maintenance, fuel truck. Oh, fuel truck. We got to do fuel. So right now you can see my fuel is listed as 0 and the target has boxes. So I'm going to go back and I go to my block fuel, 15,211 pounds of fuel. So let's put in that number, 15,211, and put that in the box. And then after that, you should be able to go and do fuel truck request. And that's going to go, and a fuel truck is going to come and fuel up your airplane. Now, if you don't want to do it this way, just put in those fast and dirty numbers that I showed you over on those other tabs. Page number 3. Look at this. It says the jetway is in place. Forward galley services, you can request cabin cleaning, or you can put in your passenger target. So if you're using the Lido style of charts, go to the end page, not the end page, page 3, and it says PAX 121. So we're going to go ahead and put in 121 and put that in there. And we don't have the airplane on yet, so we're just going to leave the passengers in the terminal. They can board in just a few minutes. Next page, this is baggage handling. So if you look over at your third page here, you see where it says cargo, 6.7. Okay, it's easy to divide even numbers, but you basically take this number, 6.7, and divide it by 2, which according to my rough calculations is 3.35, I think. Let's go ahead and do that. It's early in the morning. So 6.7 divided by 2 is, yay, 3.35. The coffee's kicking in. So what we do is go and do 3.35, which will translate to 3,350 pounds of cargo. And then 3.35, and I'm going to put that in here. Okay, and again, you could just go ahead and put all of those numbers in the other tab if you don't want to do it this way. And now I'm going to request the forward baggage loader and carts, the aft baggage loader and carts, and I'm going to just request those. And if you look outside your airplane, you should see a fuel truck there. Oh, and look at that. Here comes a baggage cart. Here comes a baggage cart. And it's going to go and just drive up to the airplane. So you get a little bit of that airline immersion if you'd like to do that. Okay, so while these are going, let's go back a couple of pages here. And 2 page, and you can see the fuel truck is there, but it has not started fueling. So I'm going to hit the start button on fueling. Okay, and that is what I do before I turn power on the airplane. Okay, everything is ready to go. So now let's go ahead and turn the power on. And the on switch for a Boeing 737 is up here. So we'll zoom out a little bit. And there it is. It's right here in the electric panel, and DC, it's the DC power switch. And if we kind of come down here a little bit, you see that the switch has off, battery, and on. So we're going to turn it on and guard it. So the battery is now on. And if you want, you could even come up here and look, and you could dial this over to battery, and you'll see that DC volts is now. It also says battery discharge. So what that is telling us is the battery is actually discharging right now. So we need to get some power going, and this is why it is that I like to have that ground power cart already ready to go. And if you look over here, there's ground power. It's available. So let's go ahead and click it down. Oh, and the airplane, all of a sudden, all of the systems turn on, and you can even hear a little bit of air blowing through the system. Those are going to be cooling fans. There's a lot of equipment on a cockpit. So the first thing I do is come over here, and we're going to turn on the recirculating fans. And I'm going to turn these to auto. Okay, so that's just going to get the air moving in the cabin and stuff. And as that's going, you can see all of a sudden the flight management computers have changed. So I'm going to slide over here, and over on the co-pilot side, I'm going to go and do menu, FS Actions, Ground Services. There, you recognize this. There's page 1. Ground power is plugged in. Look at this. The number for the fuel is going up. So they're fueling our airplane. Next page. Passengers are still waiting at the terminal. And then the third page. Oh, look at this. All the baggage loaders have arrived. I'm going to start loading baggage. Okay, so bags are starting to get loaded now. You're going to notice that as you are starting up the airplane and stuff, warnings and caution lights are on. Right now, we're just going to go ahead and cancel that caution light. And there we go. Airplane is coming to life here. So bags are loading. Passengers are waiting. Now here in the US, it seems like the APU is almost always going. So let's go ahead and let's start up the APU. Over on the fuel control panel, I'm going to go and turn on the left aft fuel pump and wait for the pressure light to go out. And once that happens, we're going to slide over here and you can see the APU start. There is the starter. And you can see over here EGT, that stands for exhaust gas temperature. And that is basically how hot the air is coming out of the back of the APU. So there is it's a off on switch and a momentary start. So let's go ahead and start it up. It's on. And then I hold it down and the starter. And all of a sudden the EGT kind of starts to move up. And if you go outside the airplane, you'll see all of a sudden some hot air beginning to squirt out of the back of the airplane here. And if you listen carefully, you can even hear it starting up. I'm going to assume that, PMDG worked really hard to get this airplane as perfect as it could. So I'm going to imagine that you're able to hear this on your Xbox too. And you can even see a little bit of air, hot air coming out of the back of the APU. And so we got an APU going. And if we look down here, let's see, do we have the EGT? Oh yeah, it's right up there. So with the EGT up there like this, you can also see the lights are out here on the APU generator. Now it's all of a sudden on. That means that there's some power available for us. We're going to just stay on ground power, but I am going to come over here to the pneumatic panel. Pneumatics on an airplane, that's the air blowing through the, ducts and stuff. We're going to go and turn the packs to auto. Okay, what that's going to do is that's going to turn on the air conditioning and make the cabin comfy for the passengers. And as you can see, after we started up the EPU, we have another master caution. So we're just going to go ahead and click that and cancel those for the time being. With all of that done, let's go, and on the pilot side, I'm going to hit FMC. Now, navigation data, I don't know exactly what the navigation data is like for you over on your Xbox, but the real pilots are going to look and make sure the dates are active. I'm using Navigraph, so I have updated data. Your flight should be just fine with whatever it is that you've got getting started, though. So the first thing we do is position init, or initialization. We are at Denver Airport, so we click in KDEN, gate number. So right now, if you look over here, you can see we're at gate Bravo 21. Oh, that's really nice there. How did I know to go to Bravo 21? Well, one of the things that I do when I'm trying to plan a flight is I use FlightAware. And I look to see exactly what flight I might be flying. And, I like to fly, shadow along with a real-world flight. Well, United Flight 488 is departing out of Denver's gate B21. And we are on time for 35 minutes into, for our departure. And we're going to be arriving at gate Echo 9 at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. So now you kind of know how it is that I figured out which airport to go to. Link in the description, by the way. Okay, so we know that we are at gate Bravo 21. Let's look back down at the FMC and put in B21 and see what happens. So B21, and it gave us a latitude and longitude. Not all the airports work like this, okay? If your latitude and if it says that not found or not in database or something, no worries. Just hit clear and go and delete out that B21 that might be down here in the scratch pad. Then come down and hit next page and see where it says GPS. Click that GPS and put that in the scratch pad. Go back to the first page and you see up here you could go and put it in there. Well, you can't put it in next. So what we're going to do is I've already got this in, so I'm going to clear these out. So what we need now is what's called the position init boxes. And to get the boxes, we're going to look at the upper panel, and you kind of have to look way up here, way up above the normal stuff. And this is the navigation stuff. So this is the IRS system, and there's two of them. So we're going to go and click this from off to nav and off to nav. You could also come up here to the IRS display, and you could turn up the brightness on the IRS display, and you could dial this over to status, and all of a sudden you could take a look at the status of your left and right displays. There is a lot of stuff under the hood under this airplane for you to learn. Lots of little rabbit holes. And as you can see, now all of a sudden we have these boxes here. So I'm going to grab the latitude and longitude for gate Bravo 21, put it in the scratch pad, and set the position. Okay? And 7 minutes later, you're going to notice that all of a sudden your navigation instruments kick into gear, because right now the IRS system is aligning itself. It's teaching the airplane where it is. We're in Denver at gate Bravo 21. Well, it's got to teach it's got to tell itself where it is. Okay? So now that we've done that, let's go to the route. Now, you probably watched, the pilots flying on PC, that they can go and download routes and everything like that. I don't think that you can do that yet in Xbox. So here's how you put your route in manually, and it's not that hard. So see, KDEN is already in the scratch pad. Put that in origin. We are going to Phoenix, so that's KPHX, Phoenix Sky Harbor. We are flying as United Flight 488. So UAL Flight 488. So there's our call sign, and that goes in there. Now it says flight plan request. I don't think that's something that's going to work, but do you see up here at the top it says 1-2? So the route page has 2 pages in here. So let's go to the next page. Ooh, look at this, it's blank. So where's our flight plan? We're going to go to page 2, and there's our route. Denver, Smurf 2 departure, day direct to GUP, and then the Eagle 6 arrival to Phoenix 7 right. That's it. That's the flight plan. It is really pretty simple. So let's go in. We just need the 2 waypoints here. And you don't even need DCT. Now, some flight plans are going to have airways. We don't need to worry about an airway on this one. So it's DAAYE. So let's put in DAAYE and put that in there. Now, let's say we had an airway, like we were on the Victor 21 airway to GUP. So you would put Victor 21 and you'd put it in this via column first, and then you'd put in GUP. But this is just a direct flight plan. So our last checkpoint is the GUP VOR. GUP. Okay, and it says that we have 2. VOR DME Gallup and DME. Okay. Usually, 90% of the time, the one you want is always going to be at the top. And this is really nice. It even gives you the name. So GUP stands for Gallup, as in Gallup, New Mexico. So that's it. As opposed to this latitude and longitude that is in the southern hemisphere of the world. So we're going to go and choose the top one. And guess what? That's it. Flight plan's done. Activate and execute. Okay? So with that done, let's slide on over and let's check and see what's going on. Well, baggage handling's done. So I'm going to go and I'm going to release all of my baggage carts. Let's look down here, and I'm going to go to previous. Oh, passengers are still at the gate. Let's go ahead and click the load. And there's the passengers, and passengers are boarding. Now we're going to come over here, and oh, look at this. The fuel truck's done. Let's release the fuel truck. And if you go outside, you can see the baggage carts are driving away. The fuel truck's going to drive away, so you can watch those and get a little airport vibe if you're like me and you haven't been to an airport in a long time. Okay, so right now the flight plan is saying that we're going to be departing off of runway 8 and doing the summer 2 arrival, departure, excuse me. So is that right? You know, you're probably not flying this at the same time I am. It's recorded, it's YouTube. So chances are your runways are a little bit different. Where do you go to find the weather? Well, in the United States, there's this thing called Digital ATIS. And so one of the things you could do is, I've got the Digital ATIS for Denver, link in the description. So Digital ATIS for Denver, I'm going to hit the refresh button on my browser. And it does say that we are using runway 8 and runway 17, and also now runway 25. Ooh, I'm going to do a this runway 25 was not available when I did the flight plan. I am going to plan on runway 25. It's a cooler departure. So runway 25 is our new departure runway, and it also gives you the METAR up here. There's several places to get METARs. Another place you can go is this web browser called SkyVector, link in the description. And if you go and take a look, SkyVector, you can see I've got my basic route plugged in. And if you go over to Denver, you see there's a green dot up here by Denver. That green dot is actually the weather. And if you hover over it, you're going to get your weather. And this is good worldwide. Digital ATIS is just good in the United States. This is great for worldwide. So you can get your weather that way and make sure you're getting the right runway. We now know that runway 25 is available, so let's do our departure and arrival. And so I click departure and arrival and departure, and we're going to go to the next page and do runway 25. And we are going to be doing the summer departure, so next page, and look for summer. Hey, there's summer too. And we have transitions. We have rate and day. Hey, day, that matches up with our flight plan. So let's do day and execute that. Cool. Index. Let's go ahead and install an arrival. Even though we may not be doing it, it could change. So our arrival, at the moment, we are expecting to arrive on ILS 7 right. We are coming in on the Eagle 6 arrival. So Eagle 6 via, oh, look at this, GUP. There we go. That matches our flight plan. And then there's a transition. So this transition that you see here is from the star into the ILS. Now, how do you know about that? This is where things like Navigraph really help. So the Eagle transition here, as we're coming in at Gallup, New Mexico, and coming on in here, so we're going to be landing to the east, so that means here at Homer, we break off here, and at O-base, we're going to be at 7,000 feet, and then it stops. You can see these 4 little arrows. That means that we just, after this checkpoint, continue on a heading of 258 degrees, and ATC is supposed to vector us to our final approach. So let's go ahead and look at our final approach for 7 right. And you can see, okay, there's Alice, there's Tesla, Falgo. This is our approach in. What was our option here? Alice. I don't think we're going to do Alice. That's far north of our flight plan, so we're not going to select that. And let's execute this. Okay, we have a flight plan in. Let's go to legs, and you can see after our departure, if you look at the departure charts, you'll see this is it. And there's the end of the SID, the departure day, and then Gallup. And then we go right into the star. And all of this looks good. Up there's Homer, Greeno, so the transition is correct. After O-base, it says vectors into the ILS for runway 7. And even it's put in missed approach if we have to do a missed approach. So all of that's good. Our flight plan is complete. Let's go to the route page again. And now we're going to do our performance initialization. But before we do that, let's go and see what's going on with passenger loading. Now, normally the pilots don't have to bother with things like this, but we do. So let's just have a look over here. The fuel truck is gone. 81 of our 121 passengers are on the airplane. And then the last page, all of the baggage is loaded and the baggage carts are gone. So the only thing we care about now is our passengers being loaded. Okay, so that's the good news there. And our airplane is moving along just fine. You can see all of the fuel truck and the baggage carts are gone. So we are loaded and getting ready to go. Let's go ahead and do our flight. Over on the flight plan, it has told us what our cruising altitude is over on page 1. And we're going to cruise at flight level 360. So cruising altitude 360. You don't even have to put the rest of the zeros in, it knows that. Cruise winds. So if you're flight planning with me through SimBrief using the Lido style of charts, you can see it says average winds right here is 265 degrees at 36 knots. So that's cruise winds. So 265, 265, do a slash, and 36 knots. And that goes in there. Okay, so I'm kind of doing top right and then going around the other way here. So my cost index is at the top. This is a United flight, United 737s for flights less than 4 hours. The cost index is generally 35. So we're going to put in 35. 35. Reserve fuel. Okay, so reserve fuel is a combination of 3 numbers on the fuel planning chart. And that's these 3 numbers right here. Continuous fuel, contingency fuel, alternate fuel, and final reserve fuel. And basically, I'm going to start at the bottom. Final reserve fuel is 30 minutes of just flying around. That's doing a hold, that's doing vectors, something like that. 30 extra minutes of flying time. And that's 2,224 pounds of fuel. To get to our alternate airport, and our alternate is Tucson, that's 2,663. And then we have contingency. That's 15 minutes of, oh my God, we need extra fuel. Okay, and that's 1,348. All of these numbers here add up to, you see something at the bottom, and it says FinRes and Alton. All those numbers add up to that number right there, and that's what I put in as my reserves. And it's one of those decimal points, so it's 4,887. So first number, 4,000, decimal point 8. And there it is. So that's good. Okay, so all of that is looking good. Let's go and set the altimeter for departure. You remember we got the altimeter by looking over at the Digital ATIS website, and Denver's altimeter is 3002. If you want to check, hit refresh. Yep, still 3002. So let's go over here and dial in. It's up here, and then you read it down here. So just dial that number. There's 3002, and that's nicely set. Let's also go ahead and set a few things here. First of all, the runway heading on departure. If you've got some charts, you're going to be able to go and look over here. Look at the airport chart. We're taking runway 25. That's 263 degrees. It's that number there. So I'm going to put in 263 here. That's going to be my heading off the runway. 263. Altitude. What's our initial climb? So one of the things is we're doing the summer departure, and there's the summer departure. But one of the things to look for is, see where it says top altitude? Now, every departure in every airport's different, but more than likely you're going to have something like a top altitude. And in our case, since we're going over the front range of the Rockies, flight level 230, so 23,000 feet is our initial climb clearance. Unless otherwise told by ATC, we're not on VATSIM right now, we're not doing ATC, so we're just going to act like we own the skies, and 23,000 feet is our initial climb. Okay, so we're putting everything together here. Oh, got another caution. Let's just clear that for the moment. And let's look down here and see how our passengers are doing. Oh, look at this. Our passengers are aboard. Look at that. 121. So come on over to the other one and see where it says zero fuel weight. If you just click the blank boxes, that's going to give you the current zero fuel weight of your airplane, regardless of what your flight plan says. This is what's actually loaded in your airplane, and we're just going to pop that in there right now. And everything else is now in, so I'm going to come over here and hit execute. Okay, next thing to do is N1 limits. You probably, if you've watched the Spy Flight over on Twitch, you know that I use something called Topper. Okay, that's an application that I purchased over at Sim Market that gives me numbers for departure. But not all Xbox pilots are going to have those numbers. So selected temperatures and D rates. This is just right now, we're going to pull a number out of thin air. And I'm going to go ahead and put a selected temperature of 48 degrees in. Somewhere around 50 is a decent number. And I'm also going to do a D rate of -1. So that means I'm not going to use as much fuel. We're not going to rev up the engines as much, and we're not going to pollute as much. We're going to take a little bit more runway to take off, but we're going to save fuel not pollute, and not tear up the engines with, slamming it down to the firewall. So that's going to take care of that, and now we're going to do takeoff. Generally, in the 737-800, flaps 5 is great. You might go to flaps 10 if you've got a really short runway, okay? Or maybe real high density altitude. Density altitude, weather term. So the higher the altitude you go in the air, the higher you go up in the atmosphere, the air gets a little bit thin. Well, in the summer, when the air heats up, it gets even thinner. And so the air isn't as dense. So sometimes you have to really watch your rate, especially your weight, especially as you're departing out of Denver. I remember one day the density altitude, I was a passenger in a 737 out of Denver. The temperature really, it warmed up a lot quicker than they expected. And the density altitude meant we were too heavy. So we had to sit at, in a little holding area and burn off a little bit of fuel before we were going to be able to take off. So density altitude is one of those things you have to deal with in the summer. Center of gravity. All you have to do is click the blank boxes. It's going to give you, like your zero fuel weight, it's going to give you your center of gravity. It's also going to tell you what your trim setting is, 5.4, 5.04. So really, you can see here, there is the green zone for takeoff trim. And we can move our trim wheel down just a little. That's about as good as it gets on that one, okay? So our trim is now set. If we were using Topper, Topper would give us speeds for takeoff. If you've put your runway in, runway 25, the flight management computer is suggesting your speeds. All you have to do is click them. Your speeds are now set in the flight management computer. You also need to see this 142 V2, come up to the autopilot and do 142. Okay, there's your speed off the runway. And now at this point, when I've got speed, heading, and altitude set, that is my little mental cue. I'm going to turn on my flight directors so I don't forget. Okay, passengers are loaded. It's time to get ready to push back. So I'm going to go over here, and we have the APU set up. I'm going to go to the APU generators, and I'm going to put those in. And now the generators from the APU are powering the airplane. You can see over here it says ground power, it's available. I just go ahead and flip that switch. Now some airplanes, it's turned off automatically. I believe it is in the 737, but other airplanes it isn't. And you need to be sure and flip that switch. Otherwise, when the ground crew goes to disconnect that ground power cable, they can get a very, very nasty shock. So you want to always make sure that that's turned off. Okay? So with that done, we can go and let's go ahead and start cleaning up and getting ready for departure. So page 1, ground power. Let's release the ground power card. There it goes. I'm going to return, and I'm going to go to doors, and the jetway is in place and the main door is still open. So we're going to close that 1L door, and you can see the door closing. And now at this point we can go and lose the jetway. So let's return, ground services, and it says jetway request release. I'm going to release the jetway. And if you go outside, you'll see the jetway is pulling back. Bye-bye, jetway. Hey, that's pretty good. So all of that is nice and clear. Let's see, squawk. I'm going to use 2000 in my transponder. So that's already good to go. But it's time to start getting ready for pushback. So passengers are aboard, doors are closed. I'm going to turn on the seatbelt signs, and I'm going to go from off to auto to on. I don't even want it on auto. I want it on. Guaranteed it's on. No smoking. It's just a chime. It's always no smoking. And then we have the emergency exit lights. This is another one of those guarded switches. And if we look over here, there you go. Easy to see. Emergency exit lights off, armed, and on. I'm going to do one click down. It is armed and guarded. Okay, so emergency exit lights are good. The next thing I'm going to do is come up over here. And this is the hydraulic pumps. One real-world 737 pilot told me in chat that when the doors are closed, they turn on the electric pumps. So electric pumps are going on. It's the summertime, so summertime, I usually don't turn on the window heat until it's pushback time. In the wintertime, I might turn on the window heat a little bit sooner to defog and de-ice the windshield. But maybe in the summertime, I'm thinking, that might make it a little bit warmer here in the cockpit. Okay, everything's good to go here. We've released the jetway. The wheel chocks are still in place. So now is a good point for us to come and do the parking brake. So the way it works in my cockpit is you have to depress the toe brakes. And I'm not sure how you do that in Xbox, but push your toe brakes and then pull the parking brake on. Parking brake is now on. I'm going to come back down here and we're going to remove the chocks. Chocks are gone. Now let's return, and it's time for pushback. Now the fancy pilots over on the PC, we've got all sorts of pushback options. This airplane should come with your very own pushback truck. So pushback, we're going to do a straight push out. No turns. My chocks are removed. We're going to select the tug. And I think we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and hit start.
Cockpit to ground.
Oh, hello.
Go ahead. We've been cleared for pushback and start straight back. Roger that. Ready for push straight back. Brakes off.
Okay. Now you just go ahead and finish up your cockpit prep. They can wait for you. You're the captain. So for us, we've got seatbelts and everything ready to go. I'm going to come down here. Oh, hit a wrong button. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I forgot to do something important. So when you power up the airplane, oh, this is terrible. I forgot to turn my position lights on to steady. That's the wingtip lights and a white light in the back of the airplane. That tells everybody on the ground that, there's some idiot up in the cockpit pushing buttons. This airplane is active, so I forgot to do that. Whoops. Okay, but we're now going to go ahead and turn on our anti-collision lights. Those are the red rotating beacons on the top and bottom of the airplane. I'm also going to hit the attendant call button. I'm just going to let them know, hey, we're going to start rolling the airplane around. Watch out. And everything else is good. The chocks are gone. You can see chocks are gone. The cones are part of my GSX. They're just there. They'll go away by themselves. But the chocks are gone. The ground power is gone. Our doors are closed. If we were in Ship Simulator, we would say that we have cleared all moorings. So all moorings are cleared, and it's time to go. So with that, come on down here. Let's go ahead and release the parking brake. Parking brakes are released. And if you've got a nice wing view set up, we'll start to see our push almost immediately. It does take a little bit of time here. Watch. I probably did something wrong. You're going to start us going. We've removed the chocks. Let's see what's going on. Oh, look at this. The start, I waited too long. So let's put the parking brakes back on, and let's go and hit the start again.
Cockpit to ground.
I waited too
Go
long.
ahead. We've been cleared for pushback and start straight back. Roger that. Ready for push straight back. Release the brakes, please. Brakes released.
Are we going to go this time? Are we going to go this time? Hey, look at that. We're going. Finally, we're out. Okay. Now then, here's the thing. Denver, push straight back. They don't turn the tail of the airplane. It's all straight back here on the Bravo concourse. And then once you clear the gate area and all the clutter, we're clear to start engines. So the first thing I'm going to do for starting engines is I'm going to turn on the rest of my fuel pumps and wait for the lights to go out. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is come over here to the pneumatic panel, the air conditioner, and we're going to turn the packs off. And so if you've been a passenger, this is when you notice before they start the engines that all of a sudden the air conditioning goes off. That's because we need the air to start the engines. And I think on a 737-800, you start right engine first, so ground start. Turn that to ground. Look down here, and you can see on engine number 2, the starter valve is now open. Look at the N2 down here, and the numbers going up. When it says 25, we can go ahead and we can start.
Pushback complete. Parking brake set.
Ooh, parking brakes set. Brakes are set.
Brake set.
And 25%. There goes engine number 2. And if you look over here while they're disconnecting the tug, engine number 2 has started spinning. Now the pushback engine here in PMDG, after you set the brakes, it just disappears, goes away, and you're done with the pushback. So over here, I usually like to come over here after we're done with that, and I just hit the progress button. So we're 561 miles away from Phoenix, okay? And we're getting a good start on engine number 2. We're waiting for the starter valve to go off. You heard a click. That was the starter, and that is clicked over. We got a good start on engine number 2. Let's start up engine number 1. Same drill. Come on down here. Ground start engine 1. The starter valve is open. Look down. The real pilots are looking at the N2 number here. They're also going to look at the oil pressure and oil temperature and oil quantity. If these numbers start to go down quickly, it means you've got a really bad oil leak. 23, 24, 25, engine, and if you can go back and listen, the sounds on the PMDG 737 are absolutely amazing. In fact, one of the things that surprised me when this airplane came out is, if you've been a passenger and the airplane's at cruise and all of a sudden it's time to go and descend and you hear the engines go to idle, there is this low rumble of idle I've never heard in a simulated airplane before this one. It's been really amazing. And now we got that engine starting too. And we got 2 engines going. Let's go ahead and check and see. Okay, the starter valve is out. And this light is now, the switch is returned to the off position. So the start is good. The first thing I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to turn on the packs because I care about the comfort of my passengers. I know, a little bit of Captain Sarcastic just dripped out there, sorry. Next thing that we're going to do is get the generators off the APU, and we're going to go ahead and get them on the main engines. So click those 2 down, those lights go out, the APU bus light goes on. And now I'm going to come back over here. There is an isolation valve. I'm going to put that to auto. That's basically the left and right height systems are now isolated from each other. And I'm going to turn off the APU bleed. And you can see that now all of a sudden the APU pressure that was over here on the right side, that dropped down. So the APU bleed is now off. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to turn on the probe heaters. Probe heaters, those are the heaters for the little things. It's kind of hard to see on this airplane. There's the probe heaters. It's up above the ground crew, but sometimes the probe heaters get really hot. And some airplanes, you can burn the ground crew. So I turn on the probe heaters when the ground crew is clear. I'm also going to look up here and I'm going to turn on the yaw damper at the top. And I also like to put my electrical monitor over on generator 1. And everything is ready to go. We're done. The last thing I'm going to do is come down to the transponder, and I'm going to go from standby to transponder. If VATSIM ever comes to Xbox, you squawk mode Charlie on all taxiways, so that's why we're doing that right now. And this is good. We're all ready to go. Shall we do our taxi? Let's go ahead and do that. Our taxi today is going to be to runway 25. So we're going to go ahead, and I really like to use Navigraph. And if you zoom it in really tight, this is where you get the really, really incredible detail. So we're going to go over here and we're going to go to Bravo November, and then we're going to go from Bravo November to Gulf, and then Bravo November Gulf down to runway 25. There's our taxi. just like the real pilots. Okay, so all this is looking good. Oh, the APU is still going. Let's go ahead and shut down the APU. We don't need that. So off. I'm going to turn on the taxi light, and I'm going to do one more attendant call button. Let them know that, hey, we're about ready to start taxiing. Okay? Let's look over here to the left. Nobody's over here. Look over there. Nobody's to the right. Parking brakes off. And the airplane sits here. A real-world Boeing pilot said you need about 30% on N1 there to get the airplane rolling. So I'm going to push my throttles forward to about 30%. Look out the window. See if we start rolling. Maybe a little bit more. And then I use the nose wheel tiller on a tight turn as we just get ready to go. I'm going to still hold that 30% or so, because when you're doing these kinds of really tight 90-degree turns, you can slow down and stop really quick. There we go. Let's go ahead and move out. Now that we're done with that little 90-degree turn, now I'm going to go ahead and wait till we pick up just a little speed. Our ground speed's 3 knots. The speedometer is right there for on the ground. There's 4 knots. And there is the yellow taxi line. And that taxi line is the Bravo November taxi line. And so we'll do a nice gentle turn. Now, I'm going to not use the nose wheel tiller anymore. The real world pilot, and that's Boeing 737NG driver, by the way, here on YouTube, says you mostly steer with your rudder pedals. You use the nose wheel tiller when you got to do one of those 90-degree turns. Okay, ground speed is now 8 knots. So I'm watching that. You want to be no more than 10 knots here in a ramp area. Now I'm at 9, so I just put my throttles to idle. Okay, and then here's that little turn from Bravo November to get us down to Golf. One of the things that you'll do also is a brake check. So test your brakes, make sure that they work. We'll wait until we get into a little straightaway. I should have done that a little sooner. There's 9 knots. We've got a couple of 90-degree turns to make here. So below 10 knots. Okay, now we just dropped to 8. There's 7. Okay, we're slowing down. So I'm going to go ahead and push my throttles up a little bit just so we don't stop. You will just flat out stop here if you don't keep going. Okay, there's 7 knots. There's 30%. Let's do that brake check now. Brake check is good. See, we went all the way down to one knot, but our brakes are good. Our throttles are up to a little less than 30%. Maybe a little bit more oomph to get us going. Golf taxiway is just up ahead. Gonna make a left turn. Be like the real pilots, look off to the right side, make sure that somebody isn't barreling down the other taxiway at you. And that looks like we're pretty good over there. Okay, there's 5 knots of ground speed. And so we'll start our gentle turn. I'm using rudder pedals on this one. The Turtle Beach gear is supposed to be really good for Xbox. I don't have them. I don't have an Xbox. But one of the spy pilots who flies with us all the time, Sunjammer, does, and said that is a really good solution if you're looking for some controllers for your Xbox. Sunjammer has both PC and Xbox and says they both work pretty good. Okay, now we got a little bit of a long stretch of taxi here. So we can go ahead and let this accelerate a little bit beyond 10 knots to 15, maybe even 20 for a really long taxi. But there's some things that we can do. How about flaps to 15? So that's going to be over there. Flaps to 15. I have a button set up on my controller. There's flaps 1, 2, and that's not 15. It's flaps 5, not 15. Flaps 5. So flaps are moving, and if you've got a view, you can go out and have a look at your flaps going down. PMDG modeled that really nice. Okay, there's 12 knots. Let's also go ahead and we're going to turn the auto brakes on to RTO. So that's right here. RTO, rejected takeoff. So as we're taking off and speeding down the runway, after the co-pilot monitoring the speed says V1, you'll notice You'll notice the real world pilots take their hand off the throttle, because after V1, there isn't enough runway to stop the airplane if you are going to stop and abort your takeoff. So V1 hands off the throttles, so you're not going to inadvertently pull them down or anything like that. The other thing that I like to do when I'm looking out here is speed brake check. Just go ahead and flap all those up. Speed brakes are good. And now we're doing 16 knots. And we're about halfway to the runway here. As we come on by, we're about ready to pass the Southside Fire Station at Denver International Airport. You can see the circus tents of the main terminal and the new Whale Tail Hotel. I think it's the Westin. I call it the Whale Tail. They probably don't like it when I call it that. Nice wing view. There is the walkway from the main terminal to the ACOG course. All the rest of the concourses use a train. Okay, 19 knots. Now we're getting a little bit fast here. So throttles to idle. And if you look outside, okay, you've been a passenger before. That looks like a taxi, doesn't it? That looks like a good taxi speed for us. Okay, now our ground speed is 18. So we're going to start slowing it down just a little bit. If you look outside, be a smart pilot. Keep that nose wheel right on the little yellow line there. So as pro as you can be. There's 17 knots, so we're starting to slow down pretty good. Sip of coffee time. Real world pilots are going to go and grab the checklist. If you can, go out to the internet and do a Google search for, the way I find my checklists is a Google search. I have 3 terms: checklist, space, B737, space, PDF. Okay? That's where I will go. That's how I will go and find a checklist. And you should be able to find something. And if you have access to a printer, and you know you want to get really good with your airplane, I actually suggest, printing it out and putting it in a plastic sleeve or something. Be like the real pilots. Grab the checklist. So, taxi. Taxi lights are on. Auto brake is set to RTO. Pre-departure. Okay, fuel flow. We're supposed to reset our fuel flow. That's this little switch right here. Fuel flow, reset. There we go. V speeds. 140, 141, and 142. Mode control panel is set. Nav data and radios are set. Pre-departure checks are done. So again, the Google search that I just mentioned, that's how I got the one that I'm holding here and using. And here's our runway, here's our hold short, and we're going to slow it down and stop. And let's go ahead and do the takeoff checklist. And we're cleared for that. So first thing it says is position lights to strobe and steady. Taxi lights are going to go off. Landing and runway turn off lights are on. Now this, I wait till I get lined up on the runway. And that's just supposedly a little bit of professional courtesy. You don't turn your landing lights on until you're pointed down the runway. Because at some airports, there might be somebody else in front of you, and landing lights are really bright. You don't want to blind somebody. So landing lights go on when we get to the pointed down the runway. So let's see. Transponder sets to TARA. Transponder TARA. Traffic on for TCAS. The clock. We're going to hit start on the clock. So let's see. Watch out on this one. Elapsed time. And start. Runway is confirmed. Runway 25. Takeoff checklist is complete. And I'm going to start the clock rolling as we get ready to go here. Once we get over on the runway and become pointed down the runway, this is when I'm going to go and do 3 things on the autopilot. I'm going to go auto throttle arm, I'm going to go VNAV and LNAV. Unless it's vectors off the runway. If it's vectors off the runway instead of LNAV, I will hit the heading select button instead. And we're all nicely lined up here on the runway. Now that we're lined up on the runway, I'm going to go and flip those lights around. So landing lights on. Taxi light, you can leave it on, turn it off. And come on, airplane. We kind of stopped. I think it's going uphill a bit. So let's go ahead and throttles to 40% as we get ready to hurtle down the runway. Wait just a second till I get lined up. And we're lined up. That looks good. So auto thrust button. Auto thrust is engaged. Hands are on the throttles. And all I'm doing is looking down the runway. This airplane gives you airspeed callouts. I wish that all flight simulator airplane developers did this. Here comes our first one.
80 knots.
Checked. Look down, check your airspeed, see it says 80. And then look outside. Hand off the throttles and rotate. Gently pull the nose up. You don't have to rock it off the runway.
Positive rate of climb.
Landing gear up. Gear going up. And then follow your flight directors. Flight directors are those 2 pink lines there on the artificial horizon. Gear is up. If you have a view set up, look outside the window on your takeoff. It's really cool. It's part of being an airplane geek. Okay, we got a bit of a turn here by our flight directors, and I'm climbing too steep. Push the nose down a little bit. There we go. There's our turn. Okay, now we're on the proper climb. Now we're going down too much. And now there's the end of the turn. Straighten us out. And at this point in time, especially if you're in a VATSIM event, I have no problem at this point hitting the command button, autopilot. Because this is a 2-person cockpit, okay? This is meant for 2 people. And with only one, you're changing frequencies and doing a bunch of stuff. And a nice view as we go out, we'll see the highway. There's the highway going out to DIAAYE for I-70. If you're really observant as you're coming out here and you see I-70, look down about halfway to the downtown area. You will see an airport control tower in the middle of the housing area. That airport control tower is the old Stapleton control tower. Okay, speed's looking pretty good. Flaps up. So flaps 2, landing gear is off, auto brakes are off. Speed's still coming up, flaps 1. And speed still coming up, leading edge slats, so flaps up. And if you get a chance, go back and look at your slats going up too. There goes the leading edge slats on the front of the wing. And a nice climb as we accelerate to 250 knots. Okay, and if you look down there, there is the old Stapleton area. There's where the control tower is. It's not very well modeled here. It used to be. Those are also the old hotels. You're going to look out here. As we go across here, you're going to see some big white buildings. That is the United Airlines Flight Training Center that we're going over. That's where all of their simulators are. That's why those hotels are still there, because airline pilots from around the world will go into the UAL Flight Training Center to use their full motion simulators and do training. There's 10,000 feet. Landing lights can go off. I do a cabin call at 10,000 feet. Let the cabin crew know we're at 10,000 feet. I have forgotten to do a few things. Our final cruising altitude's 36,000 feet. 36,000 feet. I did not set my altitude. my altitude for flight altitude. We don't want to kill the passengers. Also, I didn't set our landing altitude. Boy, I'm a terrible pilot today. Phoenix Sky Harbor is 1,135 feet above sea level. So landing altitude, 1,135. The closest we're going to get is 150. And let's see, we'll make sure that after we've set those, that the cabin starts climbing as we pass 10,000 feet. I think we caught it in time, and passengers will not be, you know, dying and stuff. Okay, this is looking good. Our speed's coming up. There's 10,000 feet. One of the things that I do is I regularly keep my heading bug set to what the autopilot is actually flying. In an Airbus, this is automatic. But airplanes, Boeing and other airplanes, you have to do it yourself. So I want to keep that always set to what we're flying. If for no other reason, because let's say the autopilot fails. Oh, which way do we fly? Just look there. There's our heading bug. We're groovy. Although they probably don't use the word groovy. So landing gear is up and off. Flaps are up. ATC is just called and cleared us up to our final cruising altitude, 36,000 feet. It is a very, very light morning here in the Front Range of Colorado. And as you look out and we go out over Denver, there's the Cherry Creek Reservoir. Passing the downtown Denver area there, heading over, this is the Tech Center, Denver Tech Center. Let's see, we should be coming out here. There's I-2.25 as we get ready to fly over Castle Rock and Palmer Lake, and there is Pikes Peak off in the horizon. This definitely take the time when you get a chance in Flight Simulator to enjoy the scenery. It is absolutely amazing. How about we do the after takeoff checklist? So positive rate of climb, gear is up, autopilot's command engage, auto brake is off, engine start switches at 10,000 feet. So I was supposed to turn the, boy, I was a terrible pilot today. For takeoff, you turn the engine starts to continuous for takeoff, and we should have turned those off. Gear lever is set to off. Runway turn-off lights and taxi lights are all off. Flaps are up. Cabin pressurization, we are checking it. And we want to make sure that as we climb, the cabin is climbing too. It is. So the cabin is now climbing with us for pressurization. So that means that we're not going to kill our passengers today. No lawsuits. Lawyers can go home. Okay. Altimeter. The United States, that's 18,000 feet. So there is 17. So we'll just wait on the checklist and reset the altimeters. Oh, we've turned a little bit. Our new heading is 176. 176. I like to keep that updated. And coming up here, 17.8, 17.9, 18,000 feet. It takes about 300 to 400 feet before you're going to notice this number, your altimeter setting, change to yellow. And that's your reminder that, oh, you need to go to standard altimeter, and it changes all your altimeters, so life is good. I'm also going to go ahead and increase the map range. I'm also going to turn on airports, data, and terrain. And there is solar, and we've turned again, so 209 is our current heading. Up to 10. There's 210, and you can see we have terrain showing up here as we go over the Front Range of the Rockies. We're going to go to the south of Colorado Springs. So this is, I think, the Monument Palmer Lake area. Yeah, there's Palmer Lake. So the Air Force Academy is down there. There's Colorado Springs and Pikes Peak as we head down to Phoenix. So continuing with our checklist, altimeter is set. Landing lights are off. Cabin pressurization is good. Seat belts and cabin lights as you need it. Generally what I do is I leave seat belts on in the on position until we get to 25,000 feet. At 25,000 feet, I'll go to auto unless there's bad turbulence. Unless there's turbulence, then I will leave them on. So, you know, apparently you don't want passengers like flying around the cabin and something. I guess, you know, that's bad. So I just used 25,000 feet as the number that I picked out of thin air. If you did turn on terrain and it's a little bit hard to see, you can come down here and you can turn the inner knob on inboard display unit down to about half, and you can see that that's going to turn down your terrain a little bit. You could also turn down the other levels too. They tend to blaze a little bit during the day, and they really blaze at night. And if you'd like, see where it says main panel? If you turn up the brightness here, you notice that the backlighting on the panels have kicked up. Makes it easier to see, to read the writing on your panels. There's one down here, so you can do panel brightness on this one. That's really nice. And then there's also one up here, and that's for the upper panel. As you're, if you're taking off during the evening hours, that's a really nice thing to do. And hello, Pikes Peak. There's Highway 24 going up to Woodland Park. There's Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs is where I kind of grew up. It's also where I did my private pilot's license. My solo flight was at Colorado Springs Airport, runway 17. That was before we had left and right. There was just one runway. No, there are not deep gouges in the concrete or anything like that. It was actually a nice first solo. There's Pikes Peak. And out we go. 25,000 feet. So at this point on the climb, I'm going to go seatbelts from on to auto. I'm going to look down here, and the cabin is still climbing. So we are still pressurizing the cabin. Pneumatic pressure is good. Packs on. Recirculating fans are on. Life is good up there. Life appears to be good down here. One of the other things that I will do is we've got the two sets of engine instruments here. I like to come up here and hit the engine button on the multifunction display, MFD, and I will then, it blanks out everything down here. And up here, we've got gas, fuel. We've also got all of our engine instruments just on one panel, which is really nice. Passing 26,000 feet. Let's do our first little fuel update. So Phoenix is 495 miles away. Looks like we're going to be landing at 1531 Zulu. And when we land, the computer is estimating that we will have 6,800 pounds of fuel in the tanks. Right now I have 12.1. Remember our flight plan? Remember that final reserve and alternate number I had? 4.8? That means that we've got more fuel than we need. Now, we're also still in climb, so that number's going to change a little bit, but this is one of those numbers that you keep a close eye on. Speaking of numbers, there was one number that I did not, that I failed to take into account and talk about. It's the tee-off fuel. And no, it doesn't have to do with your golf game. So tee-off fuel is takeoff fuel, and it said 14,711. Remember, we boarded 15,211 pounds of fuel, so this is minus your taxi fuel, which was 500 pounds for taxi, a 20-minute taxi for me. What you really need to do is, if your fuel is good, before you push the throttles forward, you know 14,000, and you look at the gas gauge and make sure, do we have more than 14,711 pounds of fuel? If so, our takeoff fuel is good and we can fly the airplane. If not, there's a chance that you're going to be not have as much fuel as you need, and the chief pilot will call you into the office and yell at you, among other things. You might also run out of, fuel and fall out of the sky. That's supposed to be a bad thing too, I'm told. You're just getting all sorts of great safety tips today, aren't you? Welcome aboard. This is your captain, Captain Sarcastic today. Something's in the coffee. I don't know what it is. And again, if you have any opportunities, enjoy the view. So, you know how sometimes we all wake up on the wrong side of the bed, bad mood? One of the things that I will do is if I'm in a bad mood or something like that, I will start up a flight, put it on autopilot, and just sort of, have breakfast here at the, computer and enjoy the flight. One of my favorite stories that I like to tell over on the live stream is one day, you know how on YouTube there are people that will take their iPhone and they will, record this, the passing scenery outside their passenger window for a whole flight, these whole flight videos. I usually every now and then will have one of those just popped up on the screen as, something, nice to just have while I'm cleaning or whatever. And one day I was watching one of those YouTube videos. It was a CRJ flight from San Francisco to Bozeman, Montana. I just thought, oh, God, this will be nice. You'll get to see the mountains around Salt Lake. It would be a nice flight. And so I popped that on, had it full screen on the computer, and went about doing my stuff. And then as I'm walking by, I looked down at that, at the view on YouTube, and I just, wow, that looks like Microsoft Flight Simulator. And then, of course, bing, in my head, I said, wait a minute, that's real life. In other words, the scenery outside Microsoft Flight Simulator is getting so good that it looks like real life. And so if you're like me and you haven't gotten to travel in a long time and you really miss it, this is the next best thing. And you don't have to take off your shoes and empty out your coffee cup because you don't have to go through security. Okay, we are coming up on top of climb here. 32,000 feet. We're going to 36,000 feet. And all of this is looking good. We are 19 miles from our top of climb. So if this is the first time you've done one of these videos with me here on YouTube, here's what we usually do. So what we'll do is we'll take off and we'll get to cruise altitude. And then once we see how many miles away we are from top of descent, basically what I do is I will hit pause on the recording. And then you hit pause on the playback. And then let's say today we're gonna restart the video 75 miles from top of descent. So what you'll do is fly along and go have breakfast or whatever and enjoy the flight. And then when your top of descent is 75 miles, that's when you restart the video here on YouTube. Otherwise, you have to sit through the entire, 2-hour flight listening to me tell bad jokes, and nobody needs to do that. So that's kind of the way we do that to save a little bit of time. You get to sit and enjoy your flight a little bit, enjoy the scenery, punch some of the buttons here. There are some buttons that you get to, play around with and learn from. So you get to learn about the airplane, and then 75 miles, we'll start the video again and start preparing for our arrival into Phoenix Sky Harbor. One of the things that I will be doing during that time is I'm going to go over to the internet and I'm going to go over to KPHX here on Digital ATIS. Link in the description, KPHX. I'm going to hit refresh just because browsers sometimes get cranky. And Phoenix ATIS, Information Delta. Winds are 090 at 8, 10 miles visibility, 2990. Simultaneous approaches in use. Expect visual approach runway 8, visual approach 7 right, departing 7 left. This is a change. So what I was expecting when I did the flight plan was a completely different runway. So we need to go and make a couple of changes in this right now. And to do that, we're going to come over here, and I'm going to do a little bit of this right now. So we're going to get rid of Denver parking gates, airport, and our SID, and I'm going to get the 7 right arrival chart and delete that. And done. Now I'm going to go to airports, Phoenix Sky Harbor, approaches, and now we're landing runway 8. So I'm going to just put the pin in that one, and now you can see there's the Eagle arrival. We're still going to blow out at O base, but now we've got a new ILS. Okay, we're still not going to use that Alice transition, but before we hit pause, let's go down and redo our departure and arrival. Departure and arrival, Phoenix arrival, ILS runway 8. Okay, we're still on the Eagle 6 via Gallup, New Mexico, and now we have 2 transitions, Alice and I like. Let's see what I like is. There's I like right there. Why don't we go ahead and use that transition? Let's just use that one. Okay, so I like, and all that's good. Let's insert that. Arrival is NA for runway. Doesn't like something. That doesn't look right to me. Let's go look at the legs and see if everything's good. Okay, there's day. Gallup needs to go in there. Oh, that was probably it. Maybe it was the, we weren't ready for that transition. Are we still, oh yeah, we haven't gone past day yet, so we're safe. So our flight plan's good, and then there's the regular arrival. Peso, Greeno, query, there is obey. So this is going to take us out the way we want to go. And then I like after vectors, everything is perfect. So we are now at our final cruising altitude, 36,000 feet. We've checked our arrival. Our arrival did change. We've set that up in the flight management computer. And we are now 439 miles northeast of Phoenix. Our estimated landing time is 15:30 Zulu. If you want to go and jump down a little fun rabbit hole, go over and take a look at your real flight. And this flight is now en route. So this took off 16 minutes early, and they are going to be arriving at about 8:28 a.m. Mountain Time. So you can kind of follow your flight along with the real world flight. I think that that's part of the fun of this. Yes, I have a strange sense of fun. And most important, 7.0 is our fuel estimated for landing. Remember on the flight plan said we need 4,800. So our gas situation is really good. Not going to have to, stop at the local Texaco and fill it up on the way down. So I think we're in good shape. According to the cruise page, we are 291 nautical miles out of top of descent. In my airplane, that means we're going to start our descent at 15:02 Zulu. So you can see it's 14:23. So what that means is we've got a good 40 minutes to top of descent. This is the whole reason why it is that I stopped the recording and stuff. But the airplane is flying good. So I'm going to continue to keep a close eye on my fuel just to make sure. The real world pilots, so one of the things they do is we are heading to the Gallup, New Mexico VOR. At day, what the real world pilots would have done is they would have gone over to the flight plan and they would have gone to each of the waypoints. So there's the departure, there's summer, and at day, so it would have talked about what would have been our estimated fuel. And our estimated fuel at the time should have been 11.1. And so we're a little bit beyond that, but our fuel is 11.0. Hey, our fuel's pretty good. We're kind of on schedule as far as the fuel. But the real world pilots are noting at each checkpoint, okay, we were supposed to be at 11.1, these little dots here, that's where you would write in the actual number so that you could also, this is sort of the real world pilots keeping an eye on the computers. And they do that every flight. So that's what I got at the moment. I'm also going to keep my heading aligned, my heading bug here. Follow the flight, the automated flight, the autopilot. So right now the airplane's heading 217. I'm heading 217. And that's it. It's early in the morning for me, which is the perfect time to fly, really. So it's actually time for breakfast here at Spy HQ. So this is when I go and get ready to hit the pause button. 75 miles. So 75 miles from top of descent is when we're going to start it up again. So there's 2 top of descent. So we got about 200 miles or so, 75. I will look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, happy flying. And there it is, 75 nautical miles to top of descent. How's your flight going? Welcome back. Thank you for flying along with me today. I hope your flight is going as well as mine. I had a nice breakfast and everything is pretty good. You can see the map here has got a little more dense here. A lot of our checkpoints are starting to pick up as we get closer and closer to the star and the arrival in Phoenix. So it's 75 miles out. It's time to start doing the descent preps. And the first thing that I will usually do is go over and get some sort of an ATIS, whether that's through VATSIM or here on the digital ATIS platform, or over on SkyVector if we're outside the United States, or at a small airport in the United States that's not digital yet. So Phoenix ATIS, information Delta is the current ATIS. Winds are 090 at 8 knots, 10 miles visibility. Few clouds at 12,000. It's 24 degrees, warming up in the Phoenix area. 2990 is the altimeter. Simultaneous approaches still in effect for runway 8 with a visual to 7 right, departing 7 left. Let's see, 5G NOTAMs are in effect. Multiple cranes are in INVOF, in vicinity of the airport. Bird activity in the vicinity of the airport too, and I bet they're not just talking about all the birdies on the golf course too. So there's your golf joke for the day. So it looks like our approach is pretty good. What I like to do is take this and I'm going to highlight that and I'm going to put it over here in what I call the spy strip. And this is something, if you look in the description below, you will see that that most of this is right in there. So you can copy and paste this, and I use this in Notepad. If you are flying over on Xbox, there's a chance that you could copy and paste that into your tablet or however you're watching the YouTube video, and maybe that will work out too. Okay, so we got the latest ATIS. We do know that our approach to the runway is just perfect. So all of our data is good. Eagle is our arrival. We're going to be coming in via the Gallup VOR, and then we're going to come out of the bottom of this star at 7,000 feet at O base and 210 knots. So if we were on VATSIM right now, about now, we would start to hear from ATC, and they might say something like, United 488 cleared for the Eagle 6 RNAV arrival, Phoenix landing runway 8, and they'd give us the altimeter setting. Okay? The minute that I hear a clearance or something like that, that I'm cleared to descend, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to put my altitude that I'm cleared to in here. So in this case, it's 7,000 feet. Is if we're cleared for the to descend via the Eagle 6, that means we're cleared down to 7,000 feet. Now they may call and change that a little bit later on, but as of now we are cleared to 7,000 feet. This is a Boeing 737, so if you've got your flight management computer set up and that altitude set, then it will start to descend automatically. You might have also noticed that I've zoomed the map out a little bit. Now I'm going to go from 80 miles to 40 miles. And as we look a little bit closer here, you can see that the top of descent dot is already starting to show up here. So you can see that we are now about 50 nautical miles from top of descent. We've also checked the ATIS, and we know that the altimeter is 2990. One of the things I really like about the 737 is I'm going to go ahead and dial the altimeter. We're still standard, 2992, but if you start to dial it, it puts a standby altimeter setting in. So below our standard altimeter setting here, it says 2990. You can preset your altimeter setting, and I think that that's great because at 18,000 feet or in Europe lower, that's a busy time. You're doing stuff. So if I can preset that right now when I'm just sitting back drinking coffee, that's really quite nice. Next thing I'm going to do is have a quick look at my fuel. Phoenix, we are estimating 6,700 pounds of fuel. Flight plan, remember, said 4,008. We have more than enough gas in case we have to do vectors for spacing. We've got to go around you know, one of those angry birds in the bird activity around the airport does something. So we're all set and ready to go as far as fuel. And so this is pretty much it at the moment. Let's go ahead and see what the checklist has to say about it. So, descent checklist. Arrival weather and data, obtained and set. Destination weather, obtained. Landing altitude, checked. Radios, set. Oop, I knew I was forgetting something, radios. So this is 737, you got to put in your own ILS frequency. If we were in Airbus land, we wouldn't, but we have to do our own frequency. So back to the chart we go. The ILS for runway 8 is 111.75. So 111.75, and I'm going to just go ahead and make that active. There is a VOR in the center of the airport here, which is really nice, 115.6. If there's one of those, I will slide over to the other nav radio and put that VOR in. What that's going to do is give me 2 DMEs. So you can see here VOR1 and VOR2. This is going to be give me the distance to the actual Phoenix VOR, which I will pick up long before I pick up the ILS. That's just another confirmation of how far away we are. The next thing to do is to go over here, and we are going to set the inbound course. So for runway 8, our inbound course is 078 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and set 078. 078. And then the last thing I'm going to do is set my minimums, and minimums are always at the bottom of whatever chart you're using. And our decision height is going to be 1,368 feet. We're going to use the baro option. There's 2 options. So you can do baro, which is the altimeter setting, or radio, which is a radar altimeter. And that's a smaller number to set, but generally we use baro for everything, and radio if you're doing a precision approach, I believe, a Cat 3 approach. So there is a number that is going to appear below the artificial horizon as I start to crank this up, and I'm just going to hold it down, and it's got to be 1,368. So there's 400, 500, 600, 700, 1368. There's 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, and then we'll now I just stopped clicking it, and now I'm just going to use the thumb wheel on my mouse to dial in the last few numbers. 1,368 feet. I'm going to look back at my chart and just have a look and make sure that I've got it right, because sometimes I will confuse myself. Okay, so we have got the ILS set, we've got the inbound course, and we've got minimums. Back to the checklist. So let's see, localizer, ILS, frequency, and course are set. Wing and engine anti-ice as needed. It's summertime, it's Phoenix, I'm not going to worry about it. If there were thunderstorms around, maybe with some really, with hail and stuff, maybe, but not now. Mode control panel. Okay, that's the autopilot, and we have reset our altitude. Altimeters are preset, minimums are set. The approach, I've been briefing it all along. And auto brakes. Auto brakes, we set it now. I am going to do auto brakes 3. Okay, and that's good to where it says below transition altitude. So we are caught up with our checklist until we get to 18,000 feet. And you can see, according to the flight management computer, we're 14 miles away from top of descent. So between 175 miles from top of descent is the absolute perfect time in a Boeing 737 to start your preparations for descent. Maybe a little bit sooner, depending. One of the things that I will also do is it is 15:02. They usually update the ATIS, between 10 minutes before the top of the hour and the top of the hour. Right now we have information Delta. Let's hit refresh. Information Echo is now in effect. Information Echo, winds are 080 at 8, slight change, 10 miles visibilities, normal clouds 27. Ooh, the altimeter is now 2991. We have 2990. So one more click of our altimeter setting. That is now preset for us, and that's good. Simultaneous approaches in use, visual approach runway 8, visual 7 right. None of that has changed, and yes, there is still bird activity in the vicinity of the airport. Okay, so here we all are. We're about ready to do our descent. Everything is looking like it's pretty good at the moment. We've updated our ATIS. Our approach is all set. Oops, our heading is off a little bit. 236, 236. And we are 4.3 miles away from top of descent. So now, because it's all nicely automated, we're just going to sit here and watch the airplane do its descent thing. As we get closer to our descent, there is going to be a little display that pops up over on the map, and that is the descent deviation. And this kind of deviation has nothing to do with my deviant sense of humor. Instead, it is how high or low we are in our optimal descent path to be able to hit all of our constraints. There we go. And you can see that we just changed on the flight management computer to descent mode. We have started our descent, and there's 2 descent deviation indicators. Here's the one on the map. And so as long as this thing is kind of in the center like this, then we are right on our descent path. Okay, so there is another one over here, and you can see it's right by the altitude. It's that little pink triangle. So those are 2 indicators. Are we on our descent path? Yes, life is good, life is perfect. See, the real pilots, they probably would have made a announcement in the cabin 10 minutes before all this happened. And since we knew that our top of descent was going to happen at a certain time, we could back time it. So we could have done the 10 minutes before descent announcement that said, folks, we're going to start our descent into Phoenix. Last chance to go to the bathroom before we have to turn on the seatbelt sign. Weather in Phoenix is, you know, sunny, dusty, and hot with a chance of tumbleweeds and rattlesnakes. Or I guess it's cactus and rattlesnakes in Arizona. But so, you know, that's all set and ready to go. Everything is good to go here. Nothing to worry about, and I think we're all set. Nothing to worry about up here. I'll do seatbelts to on at 25,000 feet. That's just what I do. Up 236, that looks good too. So we're caught up with our checklist. So seatbelts is the next exciting thing to do here on the descent. If you do have one of the moving map types of things, maybe you do have Navigraph in your iPad or something sitting off to the side of Navigraph, this is a really nice thing to be able to follow along your flight with. I don't know if you can do the flight following on Xbox or not, but I still think having this in your tablet or something is going to be a valuable tool if you really are enjoying this flight sim stuff. Another thing that I will do as we've started our descent and I have a minute is I'm going to brief my brain on the airport. I mean, you can fly to airports all over the world here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So one of the things to do is they all kind of jumble together here. So as we land on runway 8, we have the Bravo 8, 9, 10, and 11. Those are the high speeds for us. United parks over here at Terminal 3. So we're going to try and get Bravo 8 or Bravo 9 to come back here on the Charlie concourse to come into the gate area. The real world flight is coming into gate Echo 9. Remember, we know that by looking, and you could use Flight Radar 24. You can use Flight Radar 24 if you don't use FlightAware. This is just the first one that I found and set up. So the flight is 20 minutes early. Oh, gate change, Echo 3. They've changed the gate here. So I'm going to change my gate. We are now going to Echo 3, which is really cool. It's nice to see that the gates are over here. I wish more airports in Europe would do this. So you can see right now the real world flight is doing pretty good. They are at 12,500. They started their descent a little bit sooner. So they've started their descent going into Phoenix. So 12,400, they're doing really good. And this is, by the way, a 737 Model 800, so you can use Flight Radar 24 or FlightAware to find a real-world flight and shadow. the real world flight. And if you're into this airplane thing, that's kind of where some of the fun is here. So we're at 28,000. So we're probably about 5 to 10 minutes behind the real world flight at the moment. I did not pay attention to my departure time. I was doing a YouTube video, but they're usually about once a week. I will, before my regular live stream on Twitch, and if I'm not doing the YouTube, I will do a real world flight and try and hit an on-time departure. On-time departure is important as you progress through the world of flight sim, and if you get onto VATSIM and you're going to want to do a flight in something like across the pond, an on-time departure is required because there's so many airplanes involved. So if your on-time departure is 7:35 in the morning, you have to be ready for push and start 10 minutes before that time. That's just, and that's real world too. Our new heading is 217. So let's dial in 217, and we are approaching 25,000 feet. See, it was doing the seat belts, putting all the passengers in their seats at 25,000 gives the flight attendants the time to walk through the cabin that one last time, collecting trash and making sure everybody's seated in seat belts and junk. So there's 1,000 feet to go before we reset the altimeter, reset seat belts. Our descent deviation indication shows that we are surprisingly undeviant today. So very good. We do have a 21 knot headwind though. And our ground speed's about 384 knots with that. And 3, 2, 1. And that's close enough. Seatbelts going to on. Cabin call. We'll usually do a cabin call just to let the flight attendants know, hey, something happened here. Seatbelts just went on. After departure, they get an extra cabin call, let them know when the flight attendants can get up and start, preparing to pour Diet Coke, which I'm reliably informed by real-world flight attendants is really the worst thing that you can ask for in an airplane, because there's something in Diet Coke that makes it a gigantic pain in the butt to pour, into the small little cup as opposed to all of the other soft drinks. So I'm sure that there's some reason why. I've never taken a dive into that. Fuel is still great. We got enough gas to get there. We are 91 miles out of Phoenix. We're still expected to land around 1532 Zulu. That means that we, like the real world flight, are early. So we're doing good too. I guess the only other thing that I might consider doing is refreshing my memory. And we are now no longer going to Echo 9, we're going to Echo 3. So just in the back of my mind, okay, oh yes, so we're gonna get off at probably Bravo 9 or Bravo 10, Bravo to Charlie 8, into the gate area Zulu, and Echo 3. If you've got that in the back of your mind while you're before you taxi, that just makes your taxiing a lot easier, especially if you're on VATSIM. And if you're going to the new Houston airport in VATSIM, where all the taxiways have double letters, there's Whiskey Whiskey and November Zulu and November Bravo and blah, 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 blah. Keeping all that straight in your head, it really does test your short-term memory. That's why if you are Xboxing right now and eventually you're going to go to a PC and you're going to join VATSIM or something like that, one of the first things to make sure you're ready with before you go on VATSIM is a pad of paper and a pen, so that you can learn to write, start writing things down. So the minute you hear your call sign, just grab the pen and write down whatever they say. And then, you don't have to ask them to repeat it, and it's right there. And you'll also come up with your own little shorthand to write it out too. So there's 20,000 feet. Next event for us is altimeter at 18,000. If we were on VATSIM, we would be seeing little triangles ahead of us. That's the TCAS. Those are airplanes that are ahead of us. And as we look around here, we would be scanning. One of the things you can do with this airplane, I would assume you could do it in the Xbox version. I am United Flight 488 today. So you can change your call sign 488. There's your flight number, flight 488, instead of 441. So we are flying 488. 488 is doing pretty good. 8 minutes to go for them. They are at 7,000 feet, 260 knots, so they're slowing it down. Probably getting ready to make the same turns that we are. So in fact, there they are. They're about ready to finish the star right now, and then they'll be coming into runway 82 because they're flying the same conditions that we are. Again, you've got to be a little bit of an airplane geek to be doing it like this, but let's face it, if you're watching this video at this point in the video, chances are you understand completely. Unless you're, you know, like a psychiatry student doing a paper on, you know, some level of craziness that we haven't determined yet. That I pity you. Okay, 18,000 feet, almost time to reset the altimeters. And again, it takes about 200 to 300 feet below the transition before it's going to turn yellow to remind you to do that. I have a hard time with the yellow because in an Airbus it flashes at you. In this, it just turns yellow, and so that's the hard part for me. I really would appreciate that. Okay, now it's, well, maybe gold or orange. I would really appreciate it if it flashed. That would be a better reminder. So altimeters are standard. Checklist altimeters are done. So altimeters are done. Our next checklist is below 10,000 feet. Coffee time. And that's good. Over on Twitch, you probably watched a few live streams over there. You know that they have commands that viewers can go and put into chat that says stretch, hydrate, and posture check. I think that those are important for flight simmers. This is not, you know, a little 20-minute game of whatever. These are long-term games. So, you know, stretch. If during cruise you can get up and walk around a little bit, that's a good thing to do. Hydrate is good. And then the posture check thing is basically, for me, that's as we're getting ready to land. I get kind of bored sometimes sitting here and all that, so I might scrunch around in the chair a little bit. So this reminds me to sit up straight so that I can do rudder pedals and, you know, grab the throttles and the stick and everything else. Our course heading has changed. We are now heading 229 degrees. So 229, we are passing 15,000 feet. The airplane is doing the arrival perfectly. It's being a very good airplane. So I'm going to go now and I'm going to turn on systems. Systems on this airplane is going to give me brake temperatures, especially for landing. And everything else appears to be good too. One of the things that I have found, and you know, I printed up checklists for most of the airplanes that I'll use on the big VATSIM events. A big VATSIM event, especially if you're all by yourself, is total chaos, okay? There's just no other word for it. And if you're live streaming, that's just total chaos times 10. So one of the things is I forget stuff all the time in a VATSIM event. Now, most just general flights, I don't bother too much with the checklist, but on cross the pond, cross the land, I really do make sure that I follow this, because you really will forget things on that. Now, if you want to be like the real world pilots, they use it every day so that there is never a chance that they're going to forget something. But there you go. Some of the airplanes also have checklists here on the yoke. So descent checklist, pressurization, recall, auto brakes, landing data. This is pretty much what we're doing. Altimeters, engine start switches to continuous, speed brake. So you can also use this here, and this thing also slides down. And so you can slide down the little yellow thing here. So you can also use, there's usually a checklist on most of the yokes, not all of them. And pretty much all the things that you saw there are listed on this little paper thing, so that's what I do. The map is getting a little more cluttered here, so we're going to declutter the map by zooming it to 20 miles. Also, as your airspeed decreases, this also helps you with your TCAS and watching out for other airplanes. Over on the approach, this will show that we are coming in here. So at Greeno, the airplane's going to slow us down to 230 knots, and all of that's pretty good. And if we look over here, our Phoenix-bound airplane is on final approach. If we zoom it in really tight, you can see they're on the same runway we are. So they're getting ready to land on runway 8. Again, they're about 10 minutes ahead of us right now. So final approach, happy landings, real world, United Flight 488. It's a 737. One of the things that I have heard is that they are going to be doing is making sure that Xbox pilots have access to liveries. So as you probably saw, I'm flying the old United Airlines Star Wars livery. Sadly, United painted this over because, you know, the Star Wars movies were done. But, the livery lives on, like some of the classic airlines, like Pan Am, Air Berlin, and Flybe. So, in Flight Sim, really great liveries like this one. And, cool airlines, Air Berlin. What a great name for an airline. I never got to fly them or anything, but awesome. Okay, coming up on 10,000 feet. So the below 10,000 feet checklist includes landing lights, runway turnoff lights, seatbelt signs, and then you confirm the ATIS and approach at that point in time. Now heading 228 degrees. And a nice gentle descent. The airplane has been right on our optimum descent path here, and this is going to put us 7,000 feet at Heine, I guess. So we're right where we're supposed to be, and you can see Phoenix is starting to show up. There is the definite desert. So this is a little weird. There's obviously, it looks like houses here, and I guess some old farmland. Maybe that's some county or zone, some sort of a zoning thing. And as we look ahead, Phoenix Sky Harbor should be out here too. And 10,200, and our speed is dropping down to 230, so life is perfect there. So let's go ahead and do landing lights. Landing lights are on. Runway turnoff lights are supposed to go on too, according to this checklist. Seatbelt sign and cabin is good, and then I'll do a 10,000 foot cabin call. Let them know we are in sterile cockpit. And you're also supposed to re-verify the ATIS. So we're going to confirm the ATIS, refresh, information echo is still current, our approach is still good to go. ATC has got us holding at 7,000 feet at O-base. And then you can see there is the approach for us in. There's the runway right over there. It shows us 10 miles away from the VOR right in the middle. ATC just called and said continue your descent to 5,000 feet. So continue down to 5,000. So we'll let the airplane continue to do that. Lights are good. Auto brakes, speed brakes. You know what I have not done? I have not armed my... I think that drag was later. We're in good shape, right? Oh yes, we're right in the middle. That was late. That was earlier in the descent. Arm the speed brakes for landing. So speed brakes are good. We're at about 230 knots. We're supposed to go down to 210 at O-base here. So we're a little on the fast side, but not too awful. There's that 5,000 feet there at the approach, at the beginning of the approach. And there we go. There is Phoenix Sky Harbor. There is our runway. There's downtown Phoenix. And it looks like we came in at a pretty good time, because usually this time of the year it starts to get incredibly hazy in the Phoenix area. And even worse in the summertime, you know, when it's 110 degrees there. 227 is our new heading. And always so much fun and such a good idea to go out, set yourself up with a nice cabin view. I think that it's got to have cabin views in Xbox. I don't know. I sure hope so. If not, go outside and look around. Enjoy the scenery. And here is our new course heading, which should be right around 258 degrees. With the wind, it's going to be a little bit off. So we're going to go ahead and pop that up there, 262 degrees. And I'm going to go out of LNAV mode. We're going to go to heading select. And we're also going to go ahead and we're going to hit the, let's go ahead and vertical speed. And we're going to descend using vertical speed at about 1,200 feet per minute to 5,000 feet. Okay, this is a little bit off. Let's go ahead and do a bit of a turn here. We've got the winds blowing us. This was going to start to blow us to the north of the airport. We don't want to do that. So we're in vectors now. And there's our approach in, probably descending a little bit too fast. If you look underneath the landing gear here, there's something called placard speeds. And this shows that you can extend the landing gear below 270 knots. It also shows that at 250 knots, you can do flaps 1, 2, and 5. We are at 210, so I think it's time to start doing some flaps. Let's do flaps 5. I'm a little late probably in doing flaps at the moment. It also has gone and dropped our dropped the barber pole, the do not exceed your speed. And we're looking pretty good. Let's go to about 900 feet per minute. So we're going to hit this 5,000. We're going to go ahead and vector ourselves over in just a little bit. I'm going to go to the 10-mile range. So there's our entry point into the ILS. So I say left turn 180 degrees. East-south, east-west, north-south runways are so easy because you get to use, you know, the main points of the compass. 180 for south. And we're following pretty much almost the exact same path that the other airplane took. I think we're probably, I went out probably a little bit more than they did. Okay, if you look over here in white, you see ISYQ 078DME. That is the ILS. So go to your ILS and take a look at the call sign here. ISYQ. Hey, look at that. We've just verified that the airplane has got the correct ILS in. Always nice to verify these things. And we'll get a little bit closer, and let's go ahead and continue our turn. I'm going to go to 120 degrees to intercept the ILS. How about 110? And I'm going to hit the approach button. Again, let the airplane do the work, especially if you're on VATSIM. There is no shame in letting the airplane do the work while you're on a VATSIM flight. Nav course and frequency have been checked. This is the approach checklist. Speeds, we have not done our speeds, so hit init ref. I like to land the 737 at flaps 30. 141, we'll put that into flap speed. 141, I always add a little bit to that, so we're going to land about 145 to 150. Speed brake is armed. Approach mode is armed. Glide slope, at glide slope alive. And there is our glide slope. We should be getting glide slope and localizer about now. So gear down. Flaps. And now let's go to 180 for the speed. And 180 to about 5 miles DME is what I like. And flaps can go out a little bit more. There is flaps 10. We are 13 miles out. Next spot in the checklist, confirm down, gear down. So on this, I do 3 things here. Gear down, 3 green lights. Auto brakes are set. Speed brakes are armed. And those are actually the same things that we have on the checklist. Let's see, go around to altitude. If we do have to go around, so that's at the top, go around to altitude is 5,000 feet. So come on up here, 5,000 feet, make sure that's in there. Autopilot and auto throttle are set. Life is good. We are about 7 miles from approach. Reset that heading bug one last time to 080 degrees. And life is good there.
2,500.
Okay, another reminder about what you're going to do on the ground. After landing, we are exiting to the right. So that's a good thing to do too. And the approach checklist is done. We are good to go here, waiting for 5 miles. Our landing speed again, 140. I'm going to go ahead and call it 145 for landing. I'm also going to keep an eye on this little wind arrow here. That's going to tell me that the wind is blowing us from the right to the left. And you'll see some pilots in real-world videos, they actually point like this. That's so it's clear as a bell. Okay, the wind is going to blow us that way on landing. Okay, there is 5 miles, so 145 on our speed. And flaps as we slow down. We are on the glide slope. We are on the localizer. If you look in here, you see the blue line. That blue line is our missed approach course. Flaps 25. Flaps 30. Sit back in your chair, make sure if your chair reclines, that it's locked in, especially if you have rudder pedals. Reach over, gently grab your stick. Move your throttles up about halfway. Nice approach. Give yourself a chance to look out and enjoy the view once or twice. Oh my gosh, that scenery just blows me away at how good that is. Wow. Okay. Serious business time. AP is off. Cancel the alarm. This does not self-trim quite like an Airbus, so don't expect that. The wind has shifted. It's now directly ahead of us. I don't mind coming in just a little bit low here. I think that the glide slopes are a little bit high here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Auto throttle is off. Now I've got my own throttles.
Glide slope.
Yeah, it's going to yell at me about glide slope. I'm not going to worry about it.
Glide slope. Minimums.
Landing. Speed is spot on.
100.
If you hear 50 over the edge of the runway, that's good.
50. 30.
Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Microsoft, you... That is the worst time for that to pop up, you
20,
horrible people.
10.
Oh, man. Totally ruined my landing. Microsoft, we do not need that up on landing. Reverse. Brakes. Hey, I am so happy to see that we are successfully connected. I'm serious. You know, whoever clips stuff out of things, and that Microsoft, please, we do not need, that is the worst time for us to be told about those things. Come on. All right, I'm going to get off that soapbox because I could whine about that for most of the rest of the flight. Okay, auto brakes off. Flaps up, speed brakes down. And taxiing in. Seriously. I mean, the timing on that could not have been better. It could not have been better. Holy moly. All right, coming in, let's also clean up the lights. Taxi light, we're done with the turn-offs. Let's also do strobes off. And a nice gentle taxi in. We're in the US, so APU goes on about now. There goes our APU. And then when you get a chance, go over to your ground chart to keep an eye. Remember, our gate is Echo 3. And we might need just a little bit of throttle here. Yep, my throttles went away for a second there. Okay, that one was absolutely so perfectly timed. And in we go. I think that you can do probably a good 90% of what it is that I'm doing with the Xbox. Those hopefully should help you figure out transponder to transponder. And we could also turn off traffic. I've also turned off terrain radar. Okay, we are coming up on Charlie Sierra. There is Charlie Sierra. We are looking for Charlie 8 and Zulu into our gate area. So there's the little Tango taxiway. And my landing rate, thanks to the notification from our friends at Microsoft and Asobo, was 362. Let the sarcasm just drip out of the screen after that. They need to change that. Okay, and there's our gate area there. We're looking for the Zulu point. There it is. In we go. And we are going to Echo 3. That is 2 from the end, right? Yep, 2nd from the end. So there's 3 right there. This is a new payware airport. I'm assuming that the payware is starting to get really good for you in Xbox, that you can get out of the marketplace. And it even says Echo 3. How about that? Okay, let's see. Taxi light is going off now. I think I already had it off. So we don't blind the ground crew going in. We're also starting to get some airports that have really nice gate guidance coming in. I'm going to get my throttles up just a touch. So gate guidance, of course, is how it is that you get marshaled into the gate and know where to stop. Here's a little tip. So we don't have gate guidance right now, but we want the nose wheel, which is basically right underneath the pilot, to stop right there. So draw, the real world pilots say, draw a line from here all the way out here to some checkpoint. And that's the edge of the jetway for me. Okay, so let's try this experiment. Looking over here, you can see we're right on the line. So our wheel's right on the line. Let's try this. So we're gonna continue to come on here. Let's add a little bit of power here. Get us going again, 30%. Get us rolling. Okay, we're looking pretty good. There's 30%. Keep going, airplane. Okay, that's too much. And as we're kidding up here, we're all lined up. Now let's look over here. And there's the nose wheel. Let's stop. Let's do parking brakes so I can't cheat. Parking brakes are set. How did we do? Okay, I was relatively good, but I'm still off a bit. So let's go ahead and move forward and put our wheel on there and see how good I did with this experiment. Again, this is a great way to be able to marshal yourself in. Okay, there we go, right on the line. Now let's get back in the cockpit and let's look over here and see how we did. So there's was my little line right there. So I stopped a little bit too soon. Okay, so that's a way that you can marshal yourself in. Okay, that goes off. Transponder to standby. APU, I'm going to trip in the generators. And engine number 2, engine number 1. Both of those can go off. Those engines are off. Seat belts can go off. Emergency exit lights are disarmed. The anti-collision light can go off. I'm also going to turn off the probe heaters. That's a good thing to do. We're going to turn on the APU bleed and the cross feed so that we can keep the airplane cool on the ground. Come on down here, hit the menu button, go to FS Actions, Ground Services, put chocks in place, request a ground power unit, move your jetway out, look outside, make sure that the jetway is coming. Yep, we got a jetway coming. So all of that looks good. And from there you can come back down here, return. You can go to doors and open up the 1L, return. Go to ground services, page 2, nothing to do there. Page 3, let's put a 0 in for passenger target and starts passengers getting off the airplane. Put a 0 in for the front baggage, a 0 in for rear baggage or cargo. And let's see, engine inhibit. My engines are off. Why are my engines inhibit on? APU is up. APU generators are on. I have ground. I may have a problem with the, it says my engines are still on. Oh, I turned them the wrong way. I did it twice. Okay, this has been a stellar flight. There we go. Now we can go ahead and come down here. I thought I turned those off. Oh, and if you also look over here and see, you can see my right brakes. I stomped on those a little bit hard when things weren't working after being notified about my data connection thing. I'm going to be sarcastic about that for the rest of the day. Okay, now the engines are off. Can we start requesting? Nope, the loader still says the engines are inhibited. Engine inhibit is still a problem. Oh, wait a minute. Did you just clear? All right, they finally spooled down enough. And let's go and get our baggage. And then you will have to start the baggage, but passengers are getting off the airplane. And welcome to Phoenix. And there you go. You could also use a shutdown checklist, but this video has already gone long enough. I just hope that maybe some of this has helped you with this amazing airplane. I hope it's working well for you in your Xbox. And can't wait to see you in the friendly skies. Clearly, this is not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what sort of kind of works for me. And mostly I'd say that this flight worked. And I hope that some of it works for you. I am still new here on YouTube, so I'm still reading all the questions and the comments. If by any chance you really liked what you saw here and would like to support the channel, I will take this opportunity to thank all of the subscribers over on Twitch. Also the secret agents, the special agents, and the 00s. I have a new Patreon that's just getting going. That is for a more advanced flight briefing that I'm trying to do before each spy flight. That is 6 days a week. The basic membership is enough to get you that flight briefing. And I can't say thank you enough for the incredible support. Or as I like to say, the amazing jet fuel in the flight plan for subscribers and special agents and secret agents on Patreon. I also have Ko-fi now too. So if you're in Europe, Ko-fi is an awful lot easier, and I will appreciate all the support. This is how it is that I'm getting through tough economic times and layoffs and everything, and it's been such a great adventure being able to flight sim here on YouTube and Twitch. My next flight is, as of the time I'm recording this, is tomorrow, and that is going to be over on Twitch. Our departure time is always 1900 Zulu. That is 3 o'clock Eastern time in the United States during daylight savings time. And as the baggage cards start to come up to our fabulous Star Wars United Airlines 737, I will say thank you so much for flying along with me today. I hope you are having so much fun with this amazing new airplane, and I will look forward to seeing you in the friendly sim skies sooner rather than later. In the meantime, as always, I also like to say stay healthy, stay safe, and cheers.